Welcome to the WoW podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories and insights from our university community. Tune in for conversations about growth, success, and the power of communication in the academic world. So get ready to soar with us on the wings of wisdom.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of Wings of Wisdom, the WoW podcast. And today, my co-host is Gio.
Yeah,
Gio,
good
this is your
morning.
first episode.
Yeah, it is. I'm very excited. I watched a few of the episodes before to kind of get acclimated, and this is my first time doing an actual podcast, so I'm very excited for that because it's something that I want to use in the future with my students to do like blogging opportunities and things like that. So it's a good experience to have before I go into the classroom.
Very good, very good. And how do you feel about the opportunity to step into stardom?
Oh, it's something. I'm not used to it. I'm usually the one behind everything. I run sound for my church and stuff, so I'm behind everything. So it's kind of nice to be in the spotlight for once.
That's awesome. What can you tell us about yourself? Your major,
I'm
minors, that kind of
I'm
thing.
a senior integrated language arts education major with minors in creative writing and English. I'm in the marching band, symphonic band, community band, brass ensemble, pep bands, just about any band you can imagine. I'm members of the education honorary fraternity, the band service honorary fraternity, and the English honorary fraternity. And I'm pretty involved on campus for the most part, depending on what department I'm in. So I'm
You're
around.
also a
And
WCC coach.
yeah, I am an embedded coach. I work with literature and film currently, which is a fun experience. I get to work with Dr. Grady in kind of collaborating on assignments and helping students like correct papers and revise papers and helping them evolve their papers.
And what's your favorite course?
Ooh,
You can only say reading in the content areas.
yeah.
Gio's taking a
That's
class
yeah.
with me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I don't know. A favorite course, I'd probably have to say my sophomore year, I took an education, instruction, and technology course. And I think it was really interesting to be able to look at kind of the like behind the scenes of integrating technology into education, because obviously as a student, I've only seen the finished product. And being able to kind of go behind the scenes and see as a teacher on how to set it up and present it to the students was really interesting. And it's something definitely that I'm going to take into my education with me as I go into the classroom.
That's wonderful. Well, we're so happy that you're with us, Gio. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Yeah, we're excited to welcome a guest with an impressive career in education that spans over 30 years, working in schools across Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and even Caithness, Scotland. She has extensive experience in gifted education, teacher education, and arts-infused practice. Before joining Ashland University, she served as a gifted consultant for the Ohio Department of Education, contributing to the I Get GTE Ohio Javits Grant Project. Here at Ashland, she plays a vital role in the Department of Doctoral Studies and Advanced Programs, where she serves as the department chair. She also directs and teaches courses in the Talent Development Program. Our guest is passionate about fostering creativity and nurturing talented students through innovative educational practices. Please welcome Dr. Jennifer Groman to the Wings of Wisdom podcast.
Woo.
Wow. Thank you, Joe.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, that felt wonderful. Thank you so much.
That was a nice resume reading I got.
we had to condense all of your life story
Thank
in one short paragraph.
Well, before you start, I want to know what Joe plays, what musical instrument, because I'm a musician as well.
I play mainly trumpet, but I also have experience with trombone, euphonium, sousaphone, things of that nature. Most of the part, things that are like the trumpet and have the same fingerings.
Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Groman,
May I ask what you said you were a musician.
expert.
What do you play?
When I was in the marching band in my high school, I was the trombonist. So,
Okay.
my bassoon was my major instrument, and I also play guitar and flute, and piano.
Wow.
So.
Very impressive. Long list. And by the way, Dr. Groman, you're the first guest from the College of Ed, so we're Really honored to have you.
Well, thank you. Very
Yeah.
nice. That is an
So,
honor.
yeah. Let's start with your time as an undergrad. What did you study and how did you end up choosing the university you attended?
Well, I actually started as a bassoon major. I was a music major in school. I went to Bowling Green, and I wanted to be a professional musician and a music teacher, one full time and one part time, depending. I had two universities that I was looking at. Actually, Butler University in Indianapolis had a really great music program, and Bowling Green. And I loved the Butler campus. It was really beautiful, but Bowling Green it just felt so big. But when I went to visit the campus, the bassoon teacher, Dr. Robert Moore, sat with me and just spent so much time talking to me and made a real impression on me, like another dad, having a dad around to talk to. And really seemed to care about what I wanted and what I wanted from my experience. I felt like he really saw me. And plus, they offered me a nice little scholarship. So it felt right. So that's where I went. And in my third year, I was a music major and a music ed major. And in my third year, I had to go to various schools to observe teachers in action. And I was sitting in a third grade classroom and they're all on the floor. Kids are counting with their little bear counters, those cute little bear counters that they use at those grades. And some are on the floor by themselves, some are in small groups, and some are working with teachers. And I could see them working out problems and like their faces were all like really intense and focused. And I got an itch. I just felt compelled to like get down on the floor with them and work with them and help them to learn. And the very next day, actually, I went to see Dr. Moore. I'm in tears. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he said, you can play music no matter what you're doing. So I changed my major to elementary education with a music minor, and it was the right choice, the right decision.
Wow. I didn't know that you went to Bowling Green.
Yep, my undergrad. Yeah,
Our
I was on the
online
7-year plan, the 7-year plan, because I changed my major so late.
our online research shows that you went to Sophia University for
That's
your
my
master's.
second master's. Yeah, my second
Second
master's.
master's, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Is that Sophia in California or is it Bulgaria?
That's Sophia in California, actually, and had just changed its name from the Institute for Transpersonal Psychology, or ITP. It changed its names to Sophia the year that I arrived. So, yeah.
Oh wow! And
When I
your
was
your specialty was transpersonal psychology, right?
That's right.
For your
When I was
master's.
getting my doctoral degree, I wanted to specialize in transpersonal psychology, and I looked all over. Akron, that's where I got my doctorate, didn't have a program in transpersonal psychology, so I just looked all over the place. There are a number, like Omega Institute and things like that, and I saw Sophia, and they had a resident program over the summer where I'd had to be there two weeks out of the summer. In San Francisco, Palo Alto area. And so I chose that, and that too was the right decision. So I got that master's, and that then went into my doctorate as my specialization.
Wow.
So you've taught in so many places. We talked about, Florida, Georgia, and Scotland, and of course, Ohio. How did those experiences shape your approach to education?
Well, I married a man in the Navy right out of college, and when you're the spouse of a service person, you pretty much go where they tell you to go. So Georgia was the first duty station after he went to school, but he was still getting training, and we were only there for 6 months. So it's really, when they find out you're a Navy wife, they ask how long the duty station is, and when you say 6 months, nobody wants to hire you. So actually, I found a job at a daycare, this really nice, welcoming daycare. I didn't have a lot of experience with the tiny ones, and so I had 9 toddlers from 18 months to 2 years. And I learned really how challenging it is to teach little tiny ones, and you are teaching the whole time. You're teaching colors and shapes, and to stand in line, to share. That's a really big one, but I really have a strong appreciation for preschool teachers now, having gone through that, and also daycare teachers who have to change diapers pretty much constantly all day. But the one thing that was so cool about those little kiddos is everything was a learning experience. They see a bug and they're right on it, looking at the colors and we, as much as their language would provide, I would count to 6 legs and things like that. And I just felt like everything was so new. It really was the best job for me at the time. So, and then we moved to Georgia. From Georgia, excuse me, we had a 3-year tour in Scotland, and that's where I taught in Caithness. We're in a tiny town about as far north as you can go in Scotland. It's on that top hump right before you get to the North Sea. From our upstairs windows, we could see the Orkney Islands in a town called Thurso. And that was really tough, leaving home and being so far from family. And it took me a little while to get used to. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to work in education because I didn't think that my Ohio teaching license would transfer. But so I settled in for a couple months and just got tired of sitting and not doing anything. And I wrote to the Highland Education Council by hand and told them, showed them a copy of my certificate, and they interviewed me in Inverness and hired me to be a supply teacher, which is a substitute teacher. So that entire top hub, that top hump of Scotland was where I taught for almost a year, driving to these tiny little rural towns. I was on the left side of the road, driving a left-hand drive car. The car I drove was an Austin Maxi, which you've heard of the Austin or the Coopers, the Mini Coopers. This is the 4-door version. We had an unfortunate name of Maxi, so all my Scottish friends made fun of me that I had a Maxi. It wasn't very popular, but it gave me a chance to see the country, and I got to meet a lot of teachers and saw a lot of different types of schools. Most of the schools only had 2 or 3 teachers, the rural ones. I did teach in a large one in Wick, one of the big towns, and it had 20 teachers in it, but most of them were tiny. And it gave me a chance too to learn the language, because even though the Scots say they speak English, it's very different from any English I've ever heard. They throw in Gaelic words here and there, and like bairn is a baby. Our milkman came to the door and saw our new little border collie puppy, and he said, "Oh, she's a bonny wee pup." And it takes you a little while to okay, I think I understood what he said. And I had a student in front of me kind of prancing, and he's going, I use a loo, I use a loo. And luckily I knew that body language. It looked like he had to go to the restroom, and he was saying, "I got to use the loo." The loo is the bathroom there. So yeah. So, and it just turns out that there are so many things to learn, and I learned to laugh at myself and not to take myself so seriously. And I learned to be really flexible and make things a teachable moment. We don't call it a loo. We usually call it a restroom. If you call it a restroom in Scotland, they'll take your hand and help you to a seat because they think you need to rest. So, So it taught me a lot about the culture and the routines, and I had to think on my feet a lot. When you're a substitute teacher, you have to think on your feet quite a bit. Some of the adults, especially in the larger schools, were not terribly kind to an American. I was this American who, and they always used to say that I ate ketchup on my fries. They always used that real Southern accent to make fun of me rather than vinegar on my chips. And so I got a kind of a taste of being an outsider. And I think that's a really good, in retrospect, I think that's a really good place to spend time, especially as a teacher. I think everybody should do that if they can, get outside of their comfort zone. And not all of the teachers were not accepting. Most of them were actually very kind, especially in the small rural schools. And children were very open, and they wanted to know about life as an American. They wanted to know if I knew David Hasselhoff because they watched Baywatch every night. It was the Baywatch time. And I settled for my final year. I had a full year in a small school called Ray Primary School. I had their primary 3 and 4 students, and they're about 7 and 8 years old. And I had 16 students, a tiny class by comparison of today's American schools. And there were only 3 teachers in the school, so 45 kids in the entire school. Oh, wow. My classroom looked out at the North Sea, and we were so far north that in the winter, the sun wouldn't come up till about 10:30 and would go down again at 2. So we made sure the kids got out at 10 and, then again before they went home. So they had at least some daylight hours.
Wow.
So what I learned there was we taught reading and math in the morning, and then the afternoon was integrated, an integrated curriculum, and it was thematic. So we integrated science and social studies, even religion and PE and music into those afternoon lessons. So I learned a lot from my colleagues on not just sitting with a book in my hand, teaching from a book, but really engaging students in activities. We were doing lessons on hot and cold countries, and we spent time learning about the science of hot and cold, and making and testing out like ice cube holders to see what materials would keep the ice cube frozen for the most amount of time. And one of my Navy neighbors across the street from me served in Antarctica, and he came with his Antarctic suit and his boots and his materials, and talked about the research work that he had done in Antarctica with people from all over the world. And when we'd walk to the North Sea and we gathered shells, and we talked about different types of beaches all over the world. So that was really the best job ever at the time. So I learned a lot about teaching. I learned about ways to engage students, to get them doing things, to get them writing about things that they cared about. And saying goodbye to them was really very tough at the end of the year. But the duty called us to Orlando. So talk about going from a tiny little town to a huge mecca of wildness. Orlando, lots of traffic. It's hard to get from point A to point B at certain times of the day. But I found a job as a Title I reading teacher, remedial reading teacher. And I worked with students from kindergarten to grade 5. This was new to me, so I learned how to teach reading, how to determine book levels, and to gauge how well students were reading and comprehending. And it was a great place to give students confidence as well. These were struggling students. And I remember one little guy, I was pulling him out and taking him to my room. And somebody in his class said, "Why are you going with her?" And he puffs his chest out and he goes, "I'm going to extra reading because I'm so smart." And I just love that answer. It was just the best job to give kids confidence, and it gave me a lot of confidence. I was working with small groups and teaching really individualized. And I learned a couple of things I learned through all of those is I think young teachers should substitute teach before teaching full time. It's a great experience. It gets you seen in the field and known as a professional. You think on your feet, but you have to be prepared. It is not easy, and you have to be prepared for pretty much anything. And I also think that teachers, young teachers, need to get out of their comfort zone at least once. So go to a place that isn't your hometown. I know a lot of our graduates go back to their hometowns and teach. That's what I've heard about the demographics here. So if you grew up in a rural school, try visiting an urban or a suburban school. Life is really different. Schools are really different. Or Scotland. Yeah. Yeah, and they have Department of Defense schools where you can teach in English American children, but still work in Japan or row to Spain or
Yeah.
I taught in the local schools because we were so small. They didn't have a Department of Defense school up in the north. So, but we have members here in the COE faculty who have taught overseas. I know, Mohsin, you've taught in Morocco, correct?
Right.
We have faculty who have taught as close as Canada, but also as far-reaching as Brazil and Japan and Colombia. So I say, and we have lots of opportunities to teach abroad and take trips abroad. So I say take them. So.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a long answer to your question.
Oh, I have a lot of questions from what you just
a lot of
shared.
places I've been. Yeah. Yep.
As a musician, did you try to experiment with the bagpipes?
No, my husband played the bagpipes, and that was enough.
Oh, he did?
The bagpipe players have to walk while they play. It's tradition, and the joke is that they're trying to get away from themselves by walking away. But no, I was in a Scottish rock and roll band, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was called
didn't
High
know that.
Stakes. Yep, and it was 5 or 6 guys, and they were all local, and me. We had a really strong music scene, actually, for a little tiny town.
How
These
did you
guys,
connect with the band members?
they had a Navy a woman, a Navy service person who was their singer, and then she had a baby, so she needed to take some time off. And they had heard about me. I had been playing bassoon in the community band, and they had heard from around. I was also playing trombone in a little side band too. So anything you can do to play music when you can. And they found out and asked me, and I auditioned, and I played with them for a year, and it was a blast. Really saw all of the north of Scotland, and played a lot of places, a lot of
So
bars, a lot of parties. Yeah, a lot of
you went
things.
on tours and stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was weekend. I mean, pretty much I was teaching all week and working on the
gotcha.
weekends, singing on the weekends. Yeah,
That's awesome. Wow.
it was fun. I'm still friends with all of them on Facebook too. So good guys.
That's great.
So, go
Yeah, go
ahead,
ahead,
Monsieur.
Gio. No, you're good.
We've talked about, going to Scotland and Orlando and stuff like that. So what brought you back to Ohio, and especially to Ashland University back in 2017?
And
Well,
Dr. Groman is a grad of AU too.
I am. I'm an AU alumnus, actually. We moved here. My father passed away while we were in our final duty station, and we kind of decided that we wanted to be home close to family. So we moved to Ashland because my grandmother lived here, and I have family in Cleveland, and my ex had family in Columbus. So it was a nice middle point. So I got a job at Crestview Local Schools right down the road here on 96 as their gifted intervention specialist. And I had no experience with gifted, except with musically gifted individuals was always, I had a lot of interaction with. And immediately I had to start taking classes because I was teaching gifted and learning at the same time. I had to get my endorsement to my teaching license before I could be qualified to teach. But I loved going back to school. I loved Ashland so much that after I got my endorsement here, I continued on to get a master's in supervision in 2000. I'm a 2000 graduate. And I came on to adjunct in 2002, teaching the creativity class in that gifted sequence that I run now. And Dr. Jane Pierto was the director of the program at the time. She is a major name in creativity and gifted individuals. And she founded this program. She became a good friend. She became my mentor. And she was actually the person who at one point, I was taking an independent study on Jungian psychology with her. And she said, you really should get your doctorate. And I'm like, I never thought I was doctoral material. But when she retired, I had my doctorate by then. She had kind of talked me through that, and I put my name in for the position, and here I am. And this is really the best job ever. So,
As a side note, if you want to check out some of Dr. Pierto's work, I think we got a bunch of her books on the first floor of the library.
Definitely, yes.
Archer Library, yeah.
She has a really great book on creativity, and she's also a poet, and she has one award-winning fictional piece as well. So.
Wow, I know this might be a difficult question. How, and feel free to say no if you don't want to answer this. How did your time as a student at AU compare to your time in other institutions, and was there anything special about being an AU student?
Bowling Green did a really good job of making me feel seen. Dr. Moore and all of my education professors. I liked Akron, and I had some very close professors there. But what I found at Sophia and at Ashland, of course, we were here every week. Now the program is fully online, but we were here every week for 3 hours after working full day. And Dr. Pierto was tough. Her syllabi, they're still tough.
Still recovering.
I'm still teaching from them. So I've adapted quite a bit for the changes in the rule and everything, but she gave me a lot of rigor to inherit. But I've just found that the accent on the individual was really true. I know that sounds trite, but when I was a student here, I remember meeting Amy Wise, who is now in our dean's office. She was helping me with some of the paperwork and working with financial aid. And I just remember looking at her. I had known her from Crestview. She was the secretary at Crestview when I was there. And I just felt like everybody I talked to was really taking time with me and cared about who I was and where I was going. And it's just like Jane Pierto telling me that I could get a doctorate, that I was doctoral material. So when I didn't see that in myself.
Wow,
So accent on the individual, I would say.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that and your time at Ashland, what is your role as chair of the Department of Doctoral Studies and advanced programs involved? So we've talked about, you as a student. So now I guess we're kind of transitioning into you as, an administrator and you as a instructor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure there's a job description, but in the College of Education, we have the undergraduate department, that's teacher education, we call it TED, and then the doctoral studies and advanced programs, that's DSAP. And actually, Dr. Benstead is now one of our faculty. I'm glad to have stolen him away, even though I know the WCC will miss him. But here I'm a peer leader. I kind of straddle that, like you said, Gio. I straddle the faculty and administration role. I teach, I grade, I work with students, but I also work the supervisor side, solving department problems when they come up. I talk to students constantly. I'm always answering emails, just little problems, or student has an issue communicating with a teacher, with a faculty. It's just little things that crop up, or a faculty might have some issues with scheduling or that kind of thing. And we've got one faculty member now updating all of the curriculum in his department, in his program, so supporting him. And I have projects for accreditation. We have a grant project we're working on, and then peer teaching evaluations are coming up. I know Dr. Benstead was part of updating the reading curriculum, and I know he was working very hard on that, and I every once in a while would check in with them. They were pretty self-sufficient and knew their stuff, but every day is completely different here.
In addition to all of this, you teach and also you work on scholarship.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
I research creativity. Creativity studies was Dr. Pierto's forte, and I have kind of inherited that from her, just because I think her passion for it. And I'm a musician and a singer-songwriter, so it was one of those things that I just felt like creativity was something I knew from the inside, which is why Dr. Pierto taught it the way she did. She knew it from the inside, and so teaching it and researching it. So I research the creativity training and its impact on teachers. So, and I'm planning on going to Finland actually in April for a teaching fellowship, and I plan on observing teachers in the classroom to see how their educational system is different from ours, but also what creative behaviors and what creative supportive behaviors are they exhibiting. So I'll do a little research while I'm there.
What do you think you might find out, as just like as a prediction, if you will, in terms of that research?
I've already done a lot of work reading up on Finland and their educational system, and I have learned it's very different from our own. You're smiling, Dr. Benstead. So yes, it's very different from our own, and I'm not sure what they do, which is very open, and they're very individualized. Teachers, they have a rule that they teach for 45 minutes and students get a break for 15 minutes every hour. If a teacher teaches 45 minutes, the students have to take a 15-minute break, and so do the teachers. And they don't spend it just sitting at their desk eating quickly or whatever. They really do leave the classroom, have a cup of tea. We did that in Scotland too. It was a very different way of being. We are so verklempt, for lack of a better word. We're so clenched up here in our educational system, and they are so open to, and they have gotten all of their ideas from Americans. They've gotten it from Gardner's theories of multiple intelligences, and they have adapted all of American research in a really great way, and we have kind of just gone standardized. So
Yeah.
I know that's probably what I'll see more than anything. But I did my dissertation on teacher burnout, so I'm really interested in hearing what they have to say about that as well. So
That's awesome. Wow.
mhm.
It's great. I'm
Thank you.
really excited for you.
Thank you.
Um, well, speaking of that, so what can you tell us about the talent development program? What makes it unique, if that's an accurate description?
Well, it's a graduate program, so I usually have teachers that are already in the field, which is very different from teaching undergraduates. I love teaching undergraduates. I would teach the 130 class, which is the intro to teaching, and the 202, which is the ed psych class. And I really enjoyed teaching young teachers who hadn't made it into the field yet, but now I'm teaching graduates who are in the field, and they come back with a real excitement to learn about this special population. In undergraduate, we do not learn thing one about gifted education, and I would love to change that. By adding maybe an undergraduate course or a module in an undergraduate course on gifted ed. But these teachers are really passionate. They have found that they really relate to these gifted students, and they're not getting the services they need. We have all sorts of laws about special ed, but we don't. The only law we have in Ohio with gifted is that we have to identify them, and we have to tell parents that they're identified. We do not have to serve gifted kids. So they bring a lot of this experience and a lot of this kind of angst, like what do I do with these students? One of the courses I teach is an overview of gifted education, the operating standards, the way we identify various options and models for meeting the needs of gifted, and researchers and theorists. And I know it kind of sounds clunky, but it really is interesting to hear these various theories of intelligence and how they can impact what we do in the classroom. Another course I teach is the guidance and counseling course, where we learn all about the challenges of gifted students and the social emotional needs like perfectionism, oversensitivities, and underachievement. And we see that in gifted students as well as students who are not identified gifted, because there are plenty of gifted students who are not identified that are missed because we use tests. And then I also teach the creativity course, which is my area of research. So that's the one I started teaching in this program, and I adore that class. It is so much fun. And I have students there explore their own creative self so that they will know what creativity looks like when they see it in their students. And I also work with students in their internships, very, very much one-on-one. I watch them. I go out to the classroom and watch them teach. I also work with them on their practicums and a thesis project. So I have an adjunct who used to be my gifted coordinator. Her name is Janet James, and she was actually here about 10 minutes ago checking in, and she teaches the curriculum course and the coordination course. I was only a coordinator for 1 year, so she is much more versed on the coordination aspect. So we've got a nice, well-rounded program, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. How much of the transpersonal psychology, and first of all, what is that? Maybe if you can define that for us, and then if you could tell us how it's embedded within the talent development program.
Transpersonal psychology, they told us at Sophia to have an elevator blurb, that if someone asks you in an elevator, you can just say it as you go up a couple of floors. But transpersonal psychology is based in Jungian theory rather than Freudian theory, very much on the inner self, and trans psychology means beyond the regular psychology. So it could be ways of being like yoga, meditation. So you're looking at alternative forms of consciousness, and it's very personal. And I remember Freud, I know, likes to blame father or mother, and I remember on Frasier, if you remember the show
TV
Frasier, he was a Freudian psychologist, and he had this radio show, and his brother Niles, he came in one day to sub for him, and he says, now my brother is a Jungian, or my brother is a Freudian, and I'm a Jungian, so there'll be no blaming mother here. So I always thought that's a pretty good. But yeah, I always like Carl Jung's writings as long as I can understand them, because they can be pretty rich, pretty thick, but he also integrates, transpersonal psychologists integrate a lot of arts, creative arts and creative work. So I think that's where that kind of fits in. There's a lot of transpersonal psychology in my guidance and counseling course, as well in my creativity course. So.
Very good.
Yeah. So obviously, we've seen your passion for gifted education and your extensive detail and kind of work in gifted education. So in terms of that, obviously you said with your experience, it wasn't your first option other than music. So what do you find most rewarding about working in and working with gifted and talented students?
I was always told when you're a music major, when you teach music, you're not teaching students to be full-time musicians, because most of them won't be. But a lot of them will be like me, where they play at night, or they play, one of our guitarists in the Scottish band, I remember he sat in his garage playing, and nobody even knew he was there. And suddenly someone, realizes this is a great musician. He worked at the local plant during the day and played music at night. So we're not teaching people to be full-time musicians, even though it's great when they do. But what I've noticed, what I like about gifted and talented students is that, and you notice it in higher achieving students as well, it's not just identified gifted students, but they have this mysterious kind of drive. They seem driven to learn everything they can about something. Something has poked them. Dr. Pierto calls that their thorn. And they don't rest until they know everything they can about that topic. It could be dinosaurs. I mean, for a lot of kids when they're young, it's dinosaurs. They want to just take everything in about one topic. For one student I had, it was photography. She wanted to learn the ins and outs of photography. So at Crestview, I found a closet, and we made a photo developing room and got the chemicals, and we used a pinhole camera, and then eventually we even did black and white film that we could, and she learned how to develop and make prints. And I had one student crazy about prehistoric birds. He knew every Latin name and could trace their origins and their species development. In 4th grade, he knew their Latin names. I had another student, an 8th grader, that, sometimes they're beyond me as well. This one read the New York Times financial page every day before coming to school. And he had his financial blog back in the early 2000s. So it's wow. Blogs weren't even really a thing. So some students have this distinct focus for that joy, but most students in general, but gifted students really have this joy and passion for learning. And it's like when I taught those little toddlers, they see the world with fresh eyes. They see possibilities, and learning is just as natural as breathing, and there's always something new to discover. So that's one thing I just really love about teaching gifted.
Wow. You mentioned the trip to Finland. Are there any new initiatives or upcoming changes in the talent development program, or maybe in DSAP, that you feel very excited about, or you'd like to highlight?
Right now, I'm taking that teaching fellowship. I'm hoping to learn from their innovative system and seeing how they meet the needs of the various levels of learners, because they do very individualized, but they don't have gifted programs. And they're special ed. They do have special programs. I'm still just learning about that, but I'm hoping to bring that back and start a conversation with everybody in the department, even in the College of Ed. And I'm hoping even to share my research with the university as a whole, since really the university is supporting me in this as well. So right. When it comes to DSAP, to the department in general, we do have a new educational leadership program director, Dr. Michael Tefts, who has really infused a lot of life into the superintendent program, and that has been completely revised. So I see that kind of trickling down and a lot of us seeing what needs to be revised in the future. And the reading program as well, Dr. Ben said, I mean, the innovative things that are being put in place, I just want us to keep looking at that and keep looking at innovative ways to meet the needs of these students here in Ashland, undergraduate and graduate.
Wonderful.
So obviously, you've talked about cultivating a certain environment and dealing with kind of modern issues in education or, stuff like that. So as director of the talent development program, how do you approach kind of cultivating that creativity and the innovation? And how do you kind of go about dealing with that in students?
This is a really important piece. The really important piece of this is teachers need to believe that they are creative. I know a lot of my math teachers who come in and take this course, they dread the creativity course. I am not creative. I'm a math head. This is what I understand. Or science teachers or social studies teachers too, history, I lecture. This is what I do. They don't feel creative. And yet when they were 3 or 4, everybody would raise their hand. Are you creative? Yeah, sure. I can make new things. But when I was taking the creativity course here, Dr. Pierto found out that I was singing in a big band here in Ashland on the side, and kind of drew that out in me and would call me a professional singer. You sing out, you get paid to sing, that you're a professional singer. She also told me I could be a doctoral student. I mean, she made me see myself as a doctoral student. She made me see myself as a singer. And I try to use that in my creativity course. Creative self-efficacy. The ability to believe that you are creative is one of the most powerful things we can teach students at any age. Grown-ups, especially, who are saying to themselves or saying to me, I'm not creative. So I have them explore a creative genre that they've always wanted to try, or something they did when they were a kid or younger that they let go of. And it could be music or art, but it also could be planning a business or exploring mathematical patterns or Fibonacci sequences or writing poetry or novels. It doesn't have to be that traditional arts. And I think that's what the math teachers are saying when they say, I'm not creative. They're saying, I can't sing. I don't play the trombone, don't play the trumpet. But they are creative in that area. So while they practice that new creativity, they learn all the things that we should do in our classrooms to cultivate creativity in students. They learn to take risks. And when you try something new and you share it with someone the first time, it is terrifying. So you have to have a risk-safe environment. So risk-taking and group trust is very important. They learn to see the world with fresh eyes, like I told you traveling did. That's the naivete of a child, that seeing the world with fresh eyes. They learn to imagine. They learn to give things time to incubate. And over time, they start to see themselves as creative in their own right. So I want teachers to remember their own creative self so they can recognize it and support it in their students. That's actually what my research is all about. So when I took the course in 1997, I had not written original music since high school. 1982. So I had stopped writing music because I got criticism that was a little too harsh for my tender creative self. And that creativity course, I wrote a song and kind of remembered who I was again. And so Ashland did that for me. Ashland, this place, reminded me that I was a creative, that I was a musician and a singer-songwriter. So I have 4 CDs of original music because of this place, because of Ashland. So you can't wonder why I love it here so much.
That's wonderful. That's great. Dr. Groman, you have a lot of wisdom, and we're going to try to exploit that in the next segment. So let's start with this. What advice would you give to students who are pursuing or would like to pursue a career in education, like Gio?
Gio, follow your heart. One of the most important things, especially that I tell undergraduates, is don't be discouraged by what you see and hear around you. When I taught undergraduates, I was surprised how many of them told me that someone they cared deeply about tried to steer them away from teaching.
Mm.
Like, you're too smart to be a teacher. You can get so much more money as a CPA, and the kids are so bad. That's the worst. The kids
Yeah.
are so bad. You just hear these terrible things. These are great generations. It's a great generation of kids coming up. They are learning by just watching the world around them. But good teachers are in this profession, rain or shine, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. And it's about reaching into someone and helping them to see who they are and who they can be. It's not really for the faint of heart, but you have to follow your heart to get there and to do it right. I also think, Geo, create a supportive network around you as you start, especially your first teaching job. You'll have older teachers who will not be ready to listen to you because you are young, you look young, you're fresh, you have these great ideas, and it will be a little bit scary to them because sometimes they will feel like, you can edit this part out. So I think I talked myself into
No,
a
you're
corner there.
good.
So,
You're good.
so
You're good. This is great.
but yeah, it's the same experience that I had when I was in Scotland, that not all the teachers were friendly to me. We weren't all supportive of one another. That also came out in my dissertation work, is that sometimes teachers are the hardest on one another. And so find those teachers who have that life, that spark, and really want to be supportive of you, and be supportive of them. Ask them questions. Take advantage of their expertise. So make sure to have someone to cry with when the lesson goes wrong, and it always will, and to laugh with when it goes haywire, and then a high five when everything comes together. I remember an author, Parker Palmer, who's in his 80s. He writes education, wonderful nonfiction to support. One of my favorite books by him is The Courage to Teach. And he said, one day I went in, I'm 70 some years old, and I'm teaching, and the lesson went perfectly, just so smooth. And he goes home and he's like, I am the best teacher. I am so, I know how to do this. And the next day he goes in and it falls apart. He's trying something new and it falls apart. And he goes home and he says, I am the worst teacher ever. And I thought, if Parker Palmer in his 70s and 80s says that, then at my age, I'm okay to go home and go, okay, maybe I don't know everything, but get back on the horse and try it again the next day. It's important to know that we're not going to do it perfectly every day. It's a huge risk.
Yeah.
That's one thing teachers learn in the creativity class, that it's a risk to try something new. It's a risk to teach. You're putting yourself out there. There's no script. Unless you're reading from a textbook, and we don't do that. I think that's what people think we do, but that's not what we do.
Have the courage to try new things, but also have the courage to forgive yourself.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
When things don't work out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And don't forget what we're supposed to focus on, and that's students and their needs. The rest is noise. The kids are who matters. Yeah.
Thank you for that information. Obviously, education right now is a trying field with, like you said, outside factors and people pushing back and stuff like that. I know undergrad and grad students alike will be happy, obviously, to hear that someone's on their side and that there is, support teams and stuff like that out there that are willing to help you. And talking about, like, education students, whether graduate or undergrad, could you give us a little advice, myself included, about how to, balance the demands between education and, your personal life, whether it be in a field or in the actual classroom if you're a grad student? Obviously, being an undergrad, it's very busy for you to do, 5-6 classes a semester, also adding a field. So I know that's one thing that a lot of us undergrad students struggle with.
Mm-hmm. That's
some even have jobs,
great question.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, it's funny you should ask this, because this semester I am auditing Physics 107 as a student, as an undergraduate, Dr. Rod Michael, and it's called The Secret Life of Stars. And and of course working full-time or more than full-time. And this has been a real eye-opening experience for me. I've had a really tough time keeping up because by the time I get home, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
My brain is pretty much done being a brain. So, um, so it was really a lesson in practicing what I preach, and I was not always really good at it. So I'm learning to get organized in a different way, having a class and teaching as well, keeping a good calendar, setting a consistent time to work. And for me, it's setting a consistent place to work, where
Mm.
once I sit down, I know I'm in learning mode now. So, and when I'm done, be done. Put it away, close the computer. In fact, on the weekends, I usually close the computer and I do not open it again until Sunday night, just to get ready for my Monday. But when it comes to online students, I think it's important to check in with the professor when you don't understand something, or even at the beginning of the semester. If it's an online class, you're not going to have a lot of face time with them unless they do synchronous online sessions, but just get to know them. Stop in their office hours and say, I just wanted to meet you, make sure they know you as well. And if you don't understand something, make an appointment to talk to them. If something crazy is happening in your life and that happens, let them in on it. You don't have to tell them all the personal details, but just say, this craziness right now. Can I have an extra day? Or if I'm a little scattered, just understand I'm working to get it back together. Granted, teachers hear a lot of excuses like that, but I know that for the most part, students are telling me the truth when they say that to me. So,
Right.
um, and if you don't do well on an assignment and you totally bomb it, ask the professor if you can revise it and resubmit based on their, because the only way we learn is to correct our errors. And
Right.
making errors is scary. Again, it's risk-taking for students to make an error. And for graduate students who are teachers, they hate that. They hate making mistakes. I have so many perfectionists in my classes. So they want to know, how can I get that last point? And I always allow them to revise and resubmit because that's the way we learn. So turn off your phone and notifications when you work, definitely. And I set a timer. I have a little kitchen timer that looks like a tomato, the Pomodoro timer, and I set it for like 55 minutes, and then I give myself 5 minutes to just chill or get up and walk around, get a drink of water, whatever, and before I go back to it. I haven't done the Finland thing yet, where it's 45 minutes on and 15 minutes off, but
The Finland.
maybe in the future I'll be able to do that. So, and also don't work or submit assignments from your phone, because we can tell. So, like I say, it hasn't happened in my graduate courses with my teachers who are working with gifted students, because they are such perfectionists. They are such perfectionists that, yeah, they would never turn in something like that. Yeah. So yeah, don't submit assignments from your phone.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for the advice. And with this valuable advice, we wrap up another episode of Wings of Wisdom. I want to give a big thank you to Gio for co-hosting today's episode.
Well done, Gio.
And
Thank you,
of
thank you.
course, to our guest, Dr. Groman, for joining us. We truly appreciate your sharing your journey and insight and the incredible work you do at the College of Education. So thank you so much for your time and for helping shape the future of education.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me today. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah. Until next time, thanks for listening and watching. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the WoW podcast, where curiosity meets inspiration. Brought to you by the Writing and Communication Center at Ashland University.